So where do you want to start on the next part?
You can bring another question up if you want. I think I explained
Move over a little bit.
the system okay.
I'm going to move everything over because I'm getting blasted.
I guess I could talk a little bit about contrary motion.
Hang on a second.
I could talk about the principles in more depth. Why the 45?
I'm getting blasted.
Me too. That's all right.
Here, move over a little bit. Just to move over a little. A little more. Okay. That'll keep me for like 10 more minutes.
Okay, well, we only got another 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. Let me move this over a little bit. That'll be good.
You want to look through your phone, make sure it's all good?
Oh, we're good.
Okay.
It catches everything, so this will help with the sun. Definitely helps. Yeah.
So along with the 45.
So hang on.
Yeah.
Jack, that's fantastic. As you can see, there's so much to coach. I mean, in 20 minutes, he just gave you the most brilliant lesson on a figure-8 movement system for hitting and throwing in any sport or any movement system for that matter. And it parallels into so many different sports. And so that's what we love about the figure-8 movement system, the infinity movement system, and then the 8 boards and all the different products that Jack's developed. Now, Jack, show us some more of your products. Like, I love this incline board, and we used to train on it and have everyone gets on them and spins on it and stands on it and uses that movement system. So tell us more about your other products.
Let me go backwards a little bit. We first wanted to disprove some of these common theories that are in tennis. Get your racket back and turn sideways. Rotate your shoulders with your racket back like this. As opposed to what we were saying, which was there's this idea of contrary motion, meaning it's impossible. I mean, it might not look off balance necessarily to start a forehand like this, loaded up on the back foot, but it's unbalanced in nature. So we created this product just to prove to people, just to show people, look, when your hips turn to the left, your arms have to counterbalance and turn to the right. So you see, the only way to do this, I couldn't even perform a stroke, even if I wanted to, with bringing my hands back and my hips, because this idea of contrary motion, meaning balance and counterbalance. See, as my hips turn to the left and right, my arms counterbalance in the opposite direction. So you can see all the strokes. You see that? Serve, the volleys, the backhand, the forehand. You can see it all in this motion. And so that's one of the first things we had to disprove to people, was this idea that you can turn and load up, so to speak, because contrary motion is a fact. I mean, it's a law of nature. Kind of when the wind blows a tree, right? The bough of the tree moves a little and the branches push forward. And then as the bough comes back, the branches push back. So you get that sort of flag blowing in the wind. So that was one of the things we had to disprove, is the idea of loading up and this idea of contrary motion in the stroke. And then, like you said, the incline board sort of brings verticality into play. I realized, it was funny, Paul's dad had this trailer that he loved to hang out in. He was an older guy and he was a real intellectual type. Graduated Brown, really bright. He did a lot of writing and he would do it in this trailer. But his trailer was parked on an incline, like this. It really was. It was a fairly steep incline. And I used to go in there, before we invented the 8 board, I used to get in there and I'd stand, with one foot up, and then I'd start practicing my strokes, because if you went up to the top hip, it pushed you down, and you had this incline, see? So I went up and it'd bring me right back down. So you felt that nice figure 8. And so literally almost the same time we invented the 8 board, I told Paul, I said, hey, give me a wedge. I want to put that on top. So by putting this on top, now when you turn to the right, for a forehand, for a right-handed forehand, you naturally rise, right? And you come around the corner with your hips, and then your racket follows. See, so it brings verticality and challenges your balance slightly, but it brings that verticality into the figure eight, right? Because you can't just turning sideways. You could do this too, so that's not really a stroke, a complete stroke. So that's where the incline came in, and then it's great for serves, great for the throwing motion. I know all the athletes that throw balls, quarterbacks, pitchers, they all love the incline board because that really helps them feel that sort of roundness in the throw. So the incline board was a great addition. And then what happened after the incline board, this was just a couple years ago, I was kind of obsessed with this idea of verticality, and I realized, being a surfer, I realized, well, it's not really right just to have an incline on one side. So I was like, how do you have an incline on both sides? So I asked my partner and partner in crime, Paul Mayberry, to make me something that rocked. I said, make me something kind of like this right here that would rock to and fro. So now this product is fantastic. It's one of my favorite products for every stroke. Now this one, so now you can get that coiling up, and then as you hit, you level off. See that? Or if a player has trouble with balance, I just have them do the stroke and try and keep it flat, right? And just have them really focus on their hips. But in general, for the better players, I like them to actually push forward and then lay back, sort of the way a golfer, right? Golfer's like this, and as he hits, you notice his head lays back a little bit, right? It's a natural way to play golf. And you'll notice the same thing on tennis players. They come up off the ground, and that's because they're pushing down into their coil, and as they release, they come back up. So you'll see a lot of these guys on the backhand especially, right? They'll get way like this, and then as they hit, they come up off the ground, or one foot will be off the ground, and they'll kick it behind them like that. So I was really obsessed with Rios, the way he would do that. He was the first one I noticed. He would pick his back foot up, and as he hit, he would kick it behind him, lining him up to the 45, finishing the stroke. So this product is, I think, amazing. Even my top players, I know when I showed it to Mike Bryan, he was like, this is tough, It's definitely a tough, challenges your balance quite a bit. So I really think this product is fantastic for the court. Once I get a kid to a certain level, they're on this most of the time. And then the one I told you about, we sold to the U.S. ski team. They bought a lot of these over here. They bought plenty of 8 boards, but they bought a lot of these because we wanted, this is kind of cool, we figured out a way to utilize tennis balls and recycle dead tennis balls. So this one's a lot tougher. Right, you get on this and you got to sort of get low. See that? But it shows that idea of contrary motion, and it gets you in your legs, and it teaches you how to discover your own center point, right? Your vertical axis. So this is a great product, and it shows if you're asymmetrical. Like right now I'm turning, but if I stay in one position and stay balanced, I won't. I'll come over and look at the camera here.
Yeah.
So if I'm symmetrical on both sides, see that? I can stay in the center. And all this movement, but my vertical axis stays true.
That's great.
So I guess there's another thing I was going to show you, and that is this idea of contrary motion, because the 45 is crucial. It's really crucial. And the figure 8 motion is crucial, but you need to understand that contrary motion. So we invented a few little drills. See, watch my hips. See that? And I can keep a long rally going, and I don't even use my arms. And we do these other drills that are kind of fun. Anyway, so all these drills are based on this contrary motion.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you can see how dynamic all these products, I mean, collectively they can be so dynamic when you start to add them up. And it's not just for tennis players. I mean, we have so many golfers that get on it, and we have quarterbacks that just throw countless balls off of it. guys that are just arm throwers and that are just not using their whole body to throw, and they're having challenges with their arm nonstop. We get them on this, have them throw it 50 times, they'll step off, and all of a sudden they're starting to integrate their whole body and the whole movement system. And it's just a simple way to teach and to get people connected to use your summation of forces of your whole body, and really start from the core, your center of power, and go out, up and down from there.
Yeah, it's sort of a hip-hand connection, right?
Oh yeah.
It's kinesthetic learning, right? You learn kinesthetically through feeling it, how to produce this natural feeling, this body motion. It's like it's a body motion coordination device.
Oh, definitely.
And I was telling you before that, you know, even though I have coached some great players and continue to coach some great players, really the joy that I get is just as great coaching some people, some kids especially, but adults too, that have been frustrated with the game forever, right? Trying to watch the ball and follow through and bend their knees and all these linear, you know, tips and drills, and they just don't get any better, and they really feel bad about themselves. I mean, that's why I wrote the book, Secrets of the Natural Athlete, and how they can be yours, is because people are so frustrated, and I knew that frustration as a kid. I remember watching the top players in New England, and I played the Nationals once or twice, and I remember the top players, I used to watch them in awe and just go, gee, if I could just rally like that, you know, not miss, with all that power and all that control, and they looked really beautiful, and no missing. That's the key. That's the key. A lot of kids hit hard today, but it's not doing them much good if they're missing all the time. And I just am so happy now. This one girl I coached for the last year. A year ago, she was just petrified making her high school team. She was not really particularly athletic. I'm trying to be nice. And she had played tennis for 4 or 5 years and gotten nowhere. My first lesson with her, we tried to go short court, service line to service line. We literally couldn't get 2 balls over. I hit her one, she hit somewhere else. I mean, no control, no style, really just looked very mechanical, and was incredibly frustrated and confused. And she just wanted to make her high school team. She was in the 8th grade, now she's in the 9th. She plays number 2 on her team. She's still, I wouldn't say a great athlete, but she looks like a great athlete. That's the thing. You can make yourself into a great athlete by understanding. You practice the figure 8 at home. You get that supple move between your hips and your hands. And the next thing you know, a life that would have been maybe just sitting behind a desk and fluorescent lights your whole life, now all of a sudden, and you know, and being pigeonholed as a nerd or a geek or whatever you're pigeonholed as.
A non-athlete.
Non-athlete. And it's not a good feeling for a high school kid. I was lucky. I was a decent athlete in high school, but I know how my friends who weren't felt. So this can change your whole life. I mean, you know, because tennis and golf and all these sports you can do instead of walking or running. I mean, you can do something that's fun and you feel good about yourself, and people admire a good game. Let me tell you, I mean, if you have nice strokes, I always tell my kids, my students, look, if you have a good game, people in the business world they'll think you're better than you are, because they'll say, well, gee, you know, you look so beautiful on the court. It takes discipline, and how did you get so good? And they think of you like we think of Federer. We all know Federer's got to be the greatest person in the world, right? Just because of the way he looks on the court and the way he acts.
Definitely.
You know, so I think sports is so important, especially sports like tennis and golf, where you don't have to be physical. It's not like football. You can be really tiny and play a great game of tennis. In fact, some of the best players have been very short. Lavers and Ken Rosewalls and Rios, and Agassi wasn't tall, and Michael Chang. But so to me, it really is a great thing for humanity. And I guess one last thing you said about rehab, you know, the figure 8 movement is a natural movement. It's the first move you make when you're a baby. I mean, how do you think you roll over in your crib? Right? If you're on your back, the only way to roll over is move your hips in a figure 8 till you get the momentum to roll over. And crawling is that same figure 8, and you catch your balance with your hands as you wiggle in a figure 8. So they use crawling techniques to help people with Parkinson's, dementia, ADD. They're into this crawling technique. So a lot of people use our boards not only for physical therapy, but they use our boards for occupational therapy, special needs. So because when you swivel to the right, it activates your left brain, and vice versa. So as you do this continuous motion, it's very soothing, and it's very natural. It's something that you're born with, and you lose as it's either beaten out of you by a coach, or you become once right-handed dominant, let's say, and you forget about your left side, and then all of a sudden your athleticism gets worse as you get older.
Well said. Well said. I mean, I can attest to that, being standing on it just for minutes, 15, 20 minutes, just getting in a flow. And it's kind of like getting off a boat. You like keep that rocking going. Well, you just keep that figure eight movement system flowing in your body. There's circulation. It's the flow of the universe. So you just feel great after you do it. It's a very low impact exercise, like a functional exercise for everyone. So I've had so much fun doing it and learning it. And then when you take it and put it in with a sport, a throwing, a hitting, playing sport, whether it's golf, tennis,
soccer players. I've heard soccer players use
oh, well, that's how you kick. Yeah, and then on an angle, on an incline, and it just adds more dimensions to it, and that's what Jack's all about. It's just so fun. But one of the other great components too is talk to us about the Infinity movement and going into corporations and starting to work on training. It's because our whole premise is whole brain. We're one of the athleticism programs, one of the few in the country that have an actual ambidexterity program, and we use products like the 8-board to tap into that figure eight movement system. And so share with us your Infinity movement for corporations.
Sure, we've used this with corporations because what happens, the biggest problem in the corporate world is stress. Obviously, stress is a huge problem, and lower extremities blood flow. Right, you're sitting like this all day, and for people that type a lot, carpal tunnel as well. But if you're at a desk all day on the phone and your legs are like this is a terrible, terrible position, and you get varicose veins and all these problems with sciatica and pelvic muscles. All these problems start to arise, and of course the stress of work as well. But stress is physical, not just emotional. So